Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 306th episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. Today we're going to recap all 16 semifinal results. We'll look ahead a little bit to the state championship matchups. We won't make our official predictions yet. And then I'll talk about what games, what classifications stood out the most. And then normally on Monday we do a top play. But instead, I'm going to spend a segment talking about the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Basketball Classic. We'll recap all four of those games. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to do a top play from the Corky Kell basketball as well as the semifinals. But I wanted to just spend a full segment talking about those games and the event. But let's start with the semifinals. And I actually watched the full Walton-Camden County game yesterday. Because we were at the Marist-Thomas County Central, and it was a crazy game. We've seen Walton on TV a lot this year, but it was really unique because you have Walton dominating the first half. They're up 21-0. It's really hard for a team like Camden to come back in the game, but they absolutely dominated that third quarter. And Jeremy Hecklinski really made some uncharacteristic mistakes. He's known as a gunslinger, but really this season he hasn't had a bad quarter. And in the third, he comes out, he has an interception. He was trying to go to Bam Bride, and that's something we saw in the Carrollton game where Bam Bride was making a lot of what I said were NFL-level sideline catches. He'd be running a quick release, he'd stack the defender, Hecklinski would throw it up to him, and then he'd either over-shoulder it or just go up and get it. Well, Camden was well prepared for that throw, and so they get an interception to start the second half. Right at probably like the 35-yard line. So they go down, punch it in the end zone. It's 21-7 at this point. Then after that, there was a 60-yard touchdown run. Then the interception came, so it's 21-14. Yeah, that cut it to just a touchdown. Well, after that, Hecklinski throws a pick six, and so it ends up being 21-17. And at that point, it became a ball game just like that, midway through the third quarter. And then Walton went to Hunter Teal after that on a bunch of screens. He had one of the best games I've ever seen, like 160 yards, 7 catches, 2 touchdowns. But Hecklinski played a clean game after that. He only had 1 interception all season. He had 2 in a row, 2 in one quarter. But he responded to that well. So that's going to be key to have. You basically have been on fire all season long. You have your first bad quarter in a big game, but then you respond to it and pick up right where you left off. So I think that's something that's going to sharpen his focus in the state championship game and should keep his confidence level high, knowing that even if he has a bad possession or two, he's responded well before. And that is certainly a good sign because last year we saw the Carrollton game where he had the interception before the half. Things unraveled. That very well could have happened in the Camden game if he didn't shake that off. And as for Camden County, I was thoroughly impressed with their athletes and just the job that Coach Heron did getting them ready for that matchup, and to be able to come back and make it a ball game like they did. One of the players that stood out was Cooper Thornhill at the defensive position. He played linebacker. He had 17 tackles in that game, 2 tackles for loss. I think with Milton, their opponent in the finals, Milton has some bad dudes at the linebacker position as well. They're going to need someone to step up like that, get a ton of tackles, try to neutralize the Walton run game, and then allow that Milton secondary to try to draw up some interceptions. In the Walton game, some big storylines that did happen in that game. I saw Lota Agokwe, the Yale commit. It looks like he got injured in that game, missed most of the second half. He is a big force and obviously was an important playmaker trying to stop that triple option. So Walton had to go to its depth on that defensive line. He is one of the bigger guys on Walton's defense, and so they lost some size with him. Also, offensively, you had Cam Lloyd, who had a great game early on. He hurt his shoulder on a play. He was able to get up and shake it off. I don't think, when I saw him fall down, I don't necessarily think he had like a broken collarbone or something. I think it was probably not like a bad stinger. It was a separated shoulder. Okay, so we'll see if he's probably out, and that's going to be a problem. But here is what I like about the Walton team, though. It's early on you had Wyatt Sonderman miss 5 games. Cam Lloyd stepped up in the absence of Wyatt. I think now it's time. If Cam Lloyd's going to be out, that's tough, but I think it's the reverse. Now it's time for Wyatt to step up, just like Cam did when he was out. You also had in that game Jude Cascon. He was at Marist last year. He was ranked as one of the top tight end prospects in the entire state. He had a big touchdown in that first half for Walton, and he's been outstanding. He's been playing defensive end. He played defense in this game too. Came up big when Lota was out, and he's been making plays in the offense. I was thinking it's funny because we covered the Marist-Thomas County Central game, and yeah, they have Luke Harpering, they have some receivers, but it's like, my takeaway, if Jude Cascone was still on that Marist team, I think they would have beaten Thomas County Central. But he made the finals either way, and now he's going to be in the finals for Walton. But he played great, had another touchdown. He's got several this season. And then Max McCraney, he was wearing number 43. He's a sophomore receiver. He caught the final touchdown pass for Walton, a really difficult in route, an 18-yard touchdown in traffic. And so that's a player that may play a role with the absence of Cam Lloyd in the state championship. But the big key for Walton and what Milton is going to have to deal with is Hunter Teal. His catches in that game, his second half touchdown was basically a deep fade route, ran exactly like a wide receiver. He's got great hands, catches everything, made an athletic play on the ball, beat a great defender. So when you have a tight end that's able to basically win with his route running against elite Power 5 defensive backs, I mean, he is the real deal. And we know Miami of Ohio is really high on him, going as far as saying that they want to shape his offense or shape their offense around him with his ability to block on the line of scrimmage, flex out wide, and then even run screens. Another thing he did really well, he does these tunnel screens where he can just flex out wide in motion, go underneath, and then once he gets the ball, he is a physical runner, and he's downhill, and he's breaking big plays. I thought he was so phenomenal, and he's had one of the best seasons and impacts in the state this year. And then the other news in that Walton game was Ashton Woods. He went out, I think, sometime in the late first half, early second half, and I didn't know this until after our game when we were recapping in the post-game show. Rusty came on and said Ashton Woods went out in that game, and that was a big reason why Camden County was able to break that first long touchdown run and get back in the game. I went back and watched the game yesterday. I'm pretty convinced it happened around the 2-minute mark in the end of the first half, and it was a crack block. So Camden County has one of the most physical big tight ends in the state, and so what a crack block is, when you want to run an arrow route outside, you have your perimeter guys come into the middle of the field to try to wall off the middle linebackers so they can't, or outside linebackers so they can't get outside and make the play, and then you can set up the big play on the outside. So Ashton has his eyes in the backfield and the quarterback on the pass play, and so he's not paying attention, so he gets hit pretty hard on that play. Crack blocks are completely legal, so it wasn't a dirty hit or anything, but I think that was where he might have suffered a concussion. But the good news is for him, as you know, the state championships aren't this weekend. They're actually starting next week, and so he is going to be rested. He's going to be returning, and that's a good sign, because when I heard he went out, I mean, this is a guy that played with a broken wrist last season, one of the toughest kids. So I knew for him to get knocked out of a game, it had to have been bad, but it looks like it was just got shaken up on the play a little bit, but he's going to be good to go. That is a huge sign. So there were definitely injuries in that Walton game. Jeremy Hecklinski, he took a shot right in the stomach in the first half and came back from that. So, I mean, it was a physical game, but Walton's been battling. They've been a physical team all year long, so now it's just one more game, trying to have that 1-0 mentality lead them to their first ever state title. But I was very happy to hear that Ashton Woods is going to be okay, because he's one of the most exciting players to watch, and he'll be returning to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and that's where he actually got Walton started this season by hauling in their first touchdown of the year when he went in that fullback role. Some other stats from that game: you had Jake Thorner. He came up huge in the Carrollton game as well. He had 11 tackles. Justin Kruger, who had 3 sacks in the Carrollton game, he finished with 5 tackles. And then Wendell Gregory, he's had such a great senior season. There were some people that were saying, man, we really want to see him take that next step this season and impose his physicality on opponents. I think he's lived up to that, and he had 3 tackles for loss, 5 tackles in that game. And so that was a really impressive showing from that Walton defense, living up to the test of that triple option or West Coast wing T offense. So I thought that was a very exciting game, and it was so weird because you see Camden get back into it in the third quarter. Hecklinski answers immediately, and then next thing you know, there's 4 minutes left in the fourth, and the game's over. So it was exciting for a little bit, but overall just a really solid team win and great response by Jeremy Hecklinski, who finished with 16 of 23, 321 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So 1 bad quarter. Other than that, he was outstanding. And then Austin Williams and Makari Bodiford have become quite the tandem in that backfield. Bodiford had a very successful day, 20 carries, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Austin Williams, 12 carries, 78 yards. So they racked up 172 rushing yards and their longest run of the game was just 19 yards. So it was a very steady, physical running attack all game. So we know it's going to be a challenge for Milton defensively, but I think it's going to come down to the linebackers. They're going to have to be versatile, and they're going to have to adapt to the situations. When Walton goes 4 receivers or goes empty in the backfield, I mean, those linebackers have to be able to cover. They got to be able to bump Hunter Teal, try to get him off his routes. They got to watch out for the screens. And then Jeremy's deep balls have been really dangerous. In the Carrollton game, there was one where he threw it up, and you had Wyatt Sonderman in the end zone and Cam Lloyd coming across to track it down. Well, this time, their first touchdown, they had Bam Bride deep in the end zone, and then Wyatt Sonderman came over. I think the pass might have even been intended for Bam, and you had Wyatt Sonderman catching it with one hand for the first touchdown. So that's the first time I've seen a team where you have 2 receivers just back there. Hecklinski's just throwing it deep, and then one of them is coming up and grabbing it. I mean, that is, I guess it's just part of their game plan, something they've been doing, but certainly something I haven't seen other teams doing. But that's just how much trust they have, and I guess Hecklinski's got that magic touch. But it's going to be a big deal. Walton and Milton is a great matchup. I completely agree with Najee. I thought early going into the season, the best matchup that I was looking forward to was a rematch with Buford and Walton. But as the season goes on, there's no doubt in my mind this is the big matchup. This is the one that on paper is the best. And there is some history there. These teams met in the semifinals 2 years ago. That was the first year where Hecklinski really took the majority of the snaps. And there was a play in that game. Rusty brought it up in our post game. It was right before the half. And so in the Camden game, it was 4th down. Walton made it look like they were going for it, but Hecklinski basically did a quick punt. In that game against Milton 2 years ago, it was right before the half. They're probably at their own 30-yard line, and Hecklinski decided to just basically call a fake punt on his own. He just took off and ran to the sticks. He thought he saw it, and he ended up getting tackled a yard short right in front of Coach Bruner. And you see Coach Bruner with his arms crossed, just shaking his head like, what did you just do? And then Milton immediately scored, and the game was over after that. So we know Hecklinski, he obviously bounced back from that. He's been outstanding, been arguably the best quarterback in the state, but he did go out to Milton 2 years ago. And then the other difference is in that last time they played, Walton did not have Chris Jones as offensive coordinator. I think he's done such an incredible job these last 2 seasons and has just called an outstanding game. Saw how many different names gotten involved this last week, and it's going to be really interesting. And it'll be a great battle on all 3 phases: skill guys, linebackers against the run, and then up front, Walton's offensive line against that Milton defense. And then as for the Milton offense, put up a lot of points this last week, 45-35 against Grayson. Not many teams have put up 45 points on the Rams this season. And Milton, there's no secret about it this year. They are a passing offense. Luke Nickel attempted 50 passes in this game, 31 of 50, 434 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I thought you got to give credit to Coach Reeves and their staff. Running the ball against Grayson probably wasn't going to work. You got Tyler Atkinson back there. You got so much talent defensively. You aren't going to be able to break plays outside. You're probably going to have to beat them by being aggressive and just distributing the ball well. Milton has the quarterback to do it, and Luke also paced them with 55 yards and a rushing touchdown. So epic performance, 5 total touchdowns, no interceptions. Luke Nickel has shown in the last 2 games that he is a very capable runner, and it can be designed whether he's going to basically read it, keep it himself, and reverse it and get some open space. He rushed for a career high last week in the quarterfinals and 55 yards with a long of 21 and a touchdown against Grayson. Junior Amari Anderson and TJ Lester both took over a dozen carries, and as a team they averaged just 3.7 yards per carry. I think Walton has a good run defense. Obviously that's a strength of their team this year, but I just think they have to keep the offense balanced and maintain that aggressiveness and get the ball in their guys' hands. CJ Wiley, 10 catches, 136 yards, 1 touchdown. DeBron Gatling, 7 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. And then Tristan Payne, 8 catches, 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. You also have the big tight end, Ryan G, 3 catches, 39 yards. So just a great offensive performance. Milton's doing its thing. They picked up 4 sacks in the game, 8 tackles for loss. Jack Lawson, 7 tackles. A.J. Benton, 8 tackles. Ja'Cory Stewart, 2 tackles for loss. Drew Cohen, freshman Pancake Hunter, had a tackle in the game. So they're going to be rotating a ton of guys, and I don't think you can ask for a better 7A matchup, honestly. I think it's outstanding. It's going to be absolutely huge, and credit to both those teams. But let's go ahead and take a quick break and thank our sponsors. We'll cover 6A on the other side.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me, can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands and proper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, welcome back. So I'm getting these notes ready for when we cover the basketball. One sec. All right, so let's look at 6A. So the 2 classifications that I got completely wrong with my predictions, 6A and 3A. I picked Douglas County to win, and then I thought Marist would win. So I got both those wrong, and then the same in 3A. So I'm going to spend a little time talking about that. So Woodward Academy, their win over Douglas County, not going to lie, I did not see that coming. Thought Douglas County has been playing well in all 3 phases, and I felt good about the result of that game when I saw Douglas County take a quick 14-0 lead. Douglas County was undefeated going into the matchup, and so let's see how this one played out. So 10th ranked Woodward Academy gave up a quick 14-0 lead to number 3 Douglas County, then put together a 24-0 scoring run to secure the upset on the road and set up a showdown with Thomas County Central for the state title. Woodward Academy punted following both of the Tigers' first quarter touchdown runs, but the War Eagles finally got on the board with a field goal in the final minute of the opening half. Hudson Hangs sent another field goal through the uprights midway through the third, making it 14-6, then hit his third of the night early in the fourth to bring the score to 14-9. So that's interesting because it means that the defense just kept shutting down Douglas County, getting quick results like 3 and outs, and then marching down the field, field goal, points on the board 3 times in a row. So that made it 14-9. And then after a War Eagles strip sack, and I heard this play was just the play of the game because Douglas County is back there. They're trying to get points on the board after Woodward's been creeping back into it, and someone went unblocked and just absolutely teed off on Syer, and he had no chance of holding on to that ball. They pick it up, and then Landon Walker found Ben Grice for a pair of touchdowns after that, making it 24-14, and then Douglas County, after leading the entire game, now trailing, had to try to come back. They got one touchdown with 2 minutes remaining and then did not get the onside. So a really tough loss for Douglas County, really a stunner, a game where they came out, looked good early, and then Woodward Academy, there's just something about that defense, and they've got some legit playmakers on that side of the ball. They've been forcing a lot of teams to make mistakes, to make turnovers, and they can they can really shut it down. So I think it will be an interesting matchup. Woodward, it would be a great run. Obviously, they were ranked the entire season, but no one really put them in the top 5 just because they have a great defense, but offensively, there's just teams that seemingly have more firepower, but they are playing full games, full 4-quarter matchups. They have the special teams, and they've got the athletes on the field to compete. I think it will be an interesting matchup with Thomas County Central. Let's look at their win against Marist, which is an exciting game. I think it definitely stacks up in the all-time series. It was the 9th matchup. Obviously, there were some other big-time classics played, but overall, I thought it was a great game. It was the loudest game I've been to all season long. Thomas County Central brought thousands of fans. I think they'll bring even more to the state championships. It's going to be really exciting, and I can't give Coach Rogers enough credit. It's a team that won 2 games the season before he got there, and they've been something like 25-1 the last 2 years. It's just insane how well they've been playing. All right, so the number 2 Yellow Jackets, 14-0 now, champs of Region 1, will play Woodward Academy in the championship. That'll be 7 p.m. on December 12th. The Jackets limited Marist to its lowest point total of the season, forcing 4 punts and a missed field goal, and recovering 2 fumbles, including one with 3:31 remaining, as Marist was in the middle of a potential game-winning drive. With Marist on the Thomas County 32-yard line, Jackets junior D. Reddick scooped up the fumble on an option play and ran in stride for a short gain. And the Jackets took over on their 40. They'd hand the ball off to their workhorse, senior running back Trey Benton, who carried the ball 6 consecutive times, spanning 48 yards and collecting 3 first downs, while Marist burned all 3 of its timeouts. Trey Benton, Coach Rogers gave him a ton of credit, not just for his performance against Marist, but all season long. He's a tough runner. He scored their early touchdown to put them up, I think either 7-0 or 13-0. They did miss a PAT, but then he started the game for them, and then he was the finisher. He looked even better in the 4th quarter. He did not slow down at all. He's well conditioned, and he is definitely hungry and motivated to get Thomas County Central that state title. From there, Thomas County Central kneeled the ball for the Marist 12 to leave with the win. Both teams went scoreless in the second half. All right, with the option, we knew they were going to come in and try to get the dive down plenty of times. So we knew if we took away the dive and made them go outside, the game was ours. In addition to sound play under Jackets' second-year head coach Justin Rogers, Thomas County Central made the 4-hour drive, packed it. The Jackets' defense held Marist to just 135 yards on 36 carries. Their defense has been incredible all season long. It's not just being able to stop the run. They did it with all the other top-notch teams, Houston County, you name it. All right, after stopping Marist on the game's opening drive, they chewed 5:30 of clock with a 80-yard drive capped by quarterback Jalen Johnson and his 1-yard touchdown run. Jalen Johnson is a huge quarterback. So he's only a sophomore, but man, he is physically imposing. The Jackets would go up 13-0 with 4:44 left in the half on the 1-yard run by Brenton. The drive was set up by the Jackets' first fumble recovery, which junior Cameron Brooks recovered at the 39 on the Mare side. On the War Eagles' ensuing drive, they scored their only points of the game on a 12-yard run from junior quarterback Jack Ewart, which came with 59.9 seconds remaining in the half, a huge touchdown, and really changed the entire game heading into that half. They actually tried to score again. They got a quick stop, used some timeouts, but were unable to complete the pass they needed to potentially get a field goal. The War Eagles defense forced 2 turnovers by the Jackets in the second half, an interception on the third quarter's opening drive, and a fumble recovery with 10:34 left, but punted after the first turnover and missed a 32-yard field goal after the second. I thought in that situation, you're down 13-7 midway through the fourth. Yeah, a field goal would make it, because it's a 6-point lead, it would shrink it to a field goal. But at that point, you're just playing for overtime anyway. You got to go for it on that play. I thought it was just not the smart move to go for that field goal. It was long. It wouldn't have tied it up at that point. And I just felt that they should have gone for the fourth down. Or at least gone into it knowing it was 4-down territory, maybe setting yourself up with a 4th and 1. But overall, I mean, they just could not complete passes all night. I mean, they tried to throw the ball, and that's why I said if they had one more weapon, like a Jude Cascon, I felt like it could have changed their fate. Nonetheless, Thomas County Central held on. I think all the teams that have played Marist this season, whether you're Roswell, BT, you got to feel good about yourself, because Marist really had Thomas County Central on the ropes in that game in that second half. It just shows how good their team is, how senior-led they are. All right, so let's look at 5A real quick. I got that one correct. Coffee beat Cartersville 33-18, jumped out to a huge lead. Cartersville tried its best to come back. They cut it to 33-18. That was the final score. Coffee was up, looked like a 31-6 lead before a late safety. And Coffee, as good as they have been throughout the years, they have never won a state title, so they're looking to make history. But they're going to go up against Creekside. They beat Jefferson 28-17 at home. Quarterback Vincent Berry put Creekside on the board with an 18-yard touchdown to Dylan Bickerson, and then both Roderick McCrary and Travis Terrell added rushing scores. That's a huge sign. Roderick had a big game in the quarterfinals, and we were wondering if Travis was at full health, but it looks like they both will be geared up and ready to go for the state championship, and that's going to be played right before the 7A1. So what a great matchup. Creekside against Coffee in the bins on Wednesday. That's going to be outstanding. All right, and then 4A. I got both of these right, and I'm trying to think who else did. What's the name of the show that Gary Downs does? Born to Compete. Yes. Shout out to Born to Compete. I was watching their predictions, and they called it too. So Stockbridge over Benedictine. And the reason I picked them, I thought it was such a blessing that they didn't have to go to Benedictine. That's one of the hardest places to play. Their home playoff record is just unbeatable. So once I knew they were at home, I was like, okay, this might be the team that's equipped. Stockbridge, the best thing that happened to them this season was having to climb back and beat Westminster in these, I think that was the second round. Yeah, and then they had a great showing in the quarters. And then they had a tremendous first half against Benedictine. They could have been up 21-10 at the half, but they added a late field goal. And that's what championship teams do. That's what elite teams do. Just maintaining aggressiveness, focus, and getting points any way you can. especially against a team like Benedictine. And then knowing that Benedictine has been the best second-half team in the state this season, they did not slow down, and they closed it out. Their running back was Jaden Duke Scott went into that matchup with 35 touchdowns on the season. He had 3 more, and you don't see running backs putting up touchdowns like this against Benedictine. A 90-yarder, a 60-yarder, and a 59-yard touchdown. This guy is unbelievable. 58 touchdowns on the season. 38 touchdowns on the season. I mean, that's insane. Now he's going to be in the state finals against Perry. I think the key for Perry, they're so well coached. They play complementary football. They got DeCary Anderson, Coulter Jen, and what's dangerous about them is they have a great running attack, but they pass when they want to. They look for situations where they can, okay, we've been having success running the ball this way. Now we're just going to use Coulter Jen. He's got great size. He's been listed as the most underrated, unoffered quarterback in the state. This is his first year with Perry. He missed 5 games with an injury, and he has led them to their first ever finals appearance. So credit to them. I think it's going to be a great matchup, and similar to 5A with a team trying to win its first, and then a team like Stockbridge that has just been knocking on, well, I think both those programs have been knocking on the door for multiple seasons, but finally they broke through, and they've had tremendous runs in the playoffs. All right, in Class 3A, Cedar Grove was able to beat Calvary Day. What a game that was. I want to credit Jake Merkwinger. I think he did everything he could in that game. Had huge touchdown runs, was trying to trade punches with them, but Cedar Grove is just unbelievable. E.J. Colson, Devin Carter, Bo Walker, that offense, they went toe-to-toe with them, played a clean game, didn't make mistakes, and that is just a great sign. They're going to match up with Savannah Christian. I think at this point, though, because Calvary Day is a team that beat Savannah Christian in region play this year, I just think Cedar Grove looks unbeatable right now, and I thought that'd be their biggest test, and they passed it. So tremendous season for Calvary Day. They had all their seniors just prepare multiple year starters for this matchup, but Cedar Grove answered the call, got a huge win. Savannah Christian 51-26 over Carver Columbus, and they have been part of that great season for that entire area in Savannah. Just all these teams that have been at the top of their game this season. Class 2A, I picked that one correctly. I think I said before the semis, these are the 2 hottest teams in the playoffs. That's Pierce County and Rockmart. Pierce County beat Fitzgerald 35-7, denying them the state finalists from last year a return to the bins. And then Rockmart beat Cook, the number 1 ranked team, 34-24. I think that's going to be a very intriguing matchup. For Pierce County, that's Caden McGatha at quarterback. He is having a tremendous postseason. He rushed for 5 touchdowns in the quarterfinals, carried the ball 36 times, also had, I think, 5 completions and 2 touchdowns through the air. He scored all 5 of Pierce County's touchdowns against Fitzgerald. He's going to be the player to watch. And then you had Brent Washington for Rockmart, 3 touchdowns in the win over Cook, bringing his total to 18 on the season. Should be a very interesting game. Rockmart's trying to win its first championship since 1950. And then Pierce County, I think they won just a few years ago. Might have been 2021. But let's go ahead. We'll take one more quick break, and we'll close this out on the other side.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, welcome back. So let's continue with Class A Division I. It's going to be the only rematch of last year's finals that we'll get to see again. It's going to be Prince Avenue Christian against Swainsboro. Prince Avenue beat Bryan County 49-14. Swainsboro beat Brooks County 24-17. So Prince Avenue, they got a bye in the first round after getting paired up with Athens Christian, a winless team that came out of a 4-team region. They took the bye, and so that put the all-time state passing record, made it a little more harder for Aaron Philo to get because he had one less game. However, he was able to make up for it with the big second-round victory where they put up 70 points, and then the quarterfinals and then the semis. Again, he passed for nearly 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, also had a touchdown run. So where does that put him in terms of the all-time record set by Trevor Lawrence at 13,902 yards? Puts him 313 yards shy of the all-time state record. So if he does that in the finals, we'll get to see him basically ascend to the top of the all-time career yards mark. That would be quite a story for him, and he took over as a freshman after Brock Vandergriff graduated, kind of was waiting in the wings, and then he's just been obviously putting up huge numbers. I think he has the state single game all-time record. He passed something like 700 yards in one game a couple seasons ago. So Prince Avenue, if they get a big lead, they're going to keep pouring on the points. So Swainsboro, they've got to maintain. They can't get behind more than 2 touchdowns because Prince Avenue is not going to show any mercy. They're trying to set that record. So that's the first thing to watch in that matchup. The second, last year, Swainsboro came out great in that first half. They were able to use their speed. They've got 3 all-state track stars on their team. They got DeMello Jones. And so they broke some big plays early, but they couldn't match the offense of Prince Avenue. They've seen it before now. We'll see if they find a way to neutralize them. Prince Avenue did lose a game this year. They lost to Mary Persons because Mary Persons was able to run for like 400 yards. So we'll see. But it is going to be a rematch. There's history on the line in that one. Then in Class A Division II, Slide County lost a heartbreaker to Bowden. It's a rematch of last year's finals. It was another close game, 35-31. A really tough loss for the Bobcats, but a lot of credit for Bowden. Losing a lot of their skill guys last year, a lot of their offensive linemen, and then getting back to it. That's a credit to how hard that program works in the offseason and how tough they are, and all their guys that are going 2 ways. So Bowden came out of probably the toughest region in that classification. They challenged themselves, and they've won a lot of close games to get back to the state title game. They're going to play Manchester next, and they beat Telfair County 35-13. Manchester is in the state championship game for the 4th time in program history and first since its 97 state title with the win. They were down 7-0. Quay Cooper scored on a 28-yard run, but the PAT failed, leaving them down 7-6. The Blue Devils scored on an early touchdown in the second quarter and converted the two-pointer to make it 14-7. Just before half, Manchester scored on a 3-yard run to extend the lead to 21-7 with 5 minutes left in the third. They took a 28-7 lead on a 67-yard run and capped the scoring with a touchdown with 10 minutes left in the game. So they led by as many as 35-7 before Telfair answered. So it should be an interesting matchup. We'll see if Bowden can repeat. All right, so let's go over to the basketball side. On Saturday, we had the inaugural Corky Kell Dave Hunter Basketball Classic. It was 4 matchups at Norcross High School. It was all broadcasted on the Peachtree Sports Network. We had highlights going out on social media throughout the day, and you can go to the Score Atlanta YouTube page, and we have the full replays of each of the games. Obviously, we've been in football mode, but I thought this was a great opportunity to get to see some of the best teams in the state up close and personal. It's going to be very helpful. Just now that we've seen these certain teams play, just looking at them the rest of the season, seeing how the other teams match up against them. So it started off with Brookwood and River Ridge, a battle of defending state champs. And the thing I'll say about this one, Brookwood, they lost a lot from last year, but they've got some talent, and they have good athletes. They made it competitive in the third quarter when they're attacking the basket. I think they have a chance, and these are girls that are starting for the first time. They're still trying to bring pieces together because Brookwood won a title last year. They're playing really tough competition right now, but I see them getting better as the season goes on. So they end up falling 70-39. River Ridge looks like they are poised to potentially repeat. They won the title in 6A last year. Anyone that followed the year knows that was probably the deepest and most difficult girls classification last year, and so it shows just how solid they were. So in the game, River Ridge led by double digits early with an 11-4 run to open the game. Michaela Robertson led River Ridge with 18 points and earned MVP. Michaela last year, even though she was a freshman, was tasked with guarding the best player on the other team. And so what Coach Thompson was saying this year, what he wants to see from her is the same thing defensively, but become a better scorer because he wants her to be aggressive. She can take it to the hoop, and she can definitely score. And if they're going to be at the height of their potential, she's going to be contributing more offensively, and she's just a sophomore. So she had 18 points, also played outstanding defensively. Sophia Pearl balled out, and then forward Finley Parker. She is only a freshman. She is having a great year and a great start to her career. So River Ridge just looks incredible. And Coach Thompson says they have the best starting 5 in the state. They had 4 scorers in double figures. Pearl had 10. We mentioned Roberson 10, Allie Sweet 10, and Kayla Cleveland 17 to lead the way. Sweet also had several blocks. River Ridge notched the team's season high in the matchup against Brookwood, scoring 70 points. They improved to 3-1, and then Brookwood drops to 2-7 now, and they've lost 4 of their 5. So they've been challenged early on, but I still like what I see, and they were able to make that a close game. In the third, they actually cut it to 23-18. So that was off a 14-2 run, led by Justice McCoy and ZJ Knight. So you can check out that replay and the full game at scoreatl.com and our YouTube page. All right, so then in the first boys game, it was a really interesting matchup. West Forsyth against Lanier. I thought Lanier had the size advantage, had the advantage in athletes, but West Forsyth they didn't make as many mistakes, and they've got some big-time outside shooters. and some size in the paint. And that was Sam Menard. I think he was wearing number 11. He's a big physical presence. He's going to clean it up on the glass. He's got nice touch when he's in the paint, and he was definitely a problem throughout the game. And then junior Gray Smith played outstanding, hit a game-high 20 points, came up clutch with the basket to pretty much ice the game. Ended up being a 63-57 victory, but he had a nice pull-up jumper, and then to close it out, Sam Menard took it to the rack and iced it at the foul line. So that duo right there had 39 of West Forsyth's 63 points. Smith also nailed a three-pointer late in the first quarter to give West Forsyth an 11-8 lead. They closed out the quarter with an 11-10 edge after several lead changes and a 10-point first half by the junior Gray Smith. West Forsyth headed into the break with a 32-26 lead. Lanier actually came out in the second half with 6 straight points, but West Forsyth responded and closed out the third with a 63-57 lead. So at any time Lanier would take the lead, West Forsyth was able to respond and close out the quarter with the edge. Our defensive effort was outstanding, said West Forsyth assistant coach Tim Kemp following the game. That is what we were all about. We aren't the biggest team and we aren't the most talented, but we're going to give a great defensive effort. West Forsyth was also missing one of its key players, and this is a Lanier team that made the semifinals last year and lost by a point to Lee County. So it's a big win for West Forsyth. They showed up, played on TV, and it's a really exciting victory. I think they're going to be a big challenge in that region this year, but credit to the Wolverines and how they matched up and just gave a great defensive effort. They got 8 points from Braden Holleran, LaChan Povins, and then we mentioned the big time performance by Sam and Gray. All right, so in the third game, it was the Baldwin girls against host Norcross. Norcross won that one 51-40. Baldwin hit 40 points late in the game. There were a lot of possessions late, though. Really, they held them in the low 30s for, I guess, all but the final 2 minutes. I mean, the Norcross defense, this is a very talented Baldwin team. You got Madison Ruff, a 1,000-point career scorer. She can easily go up for 20 a game. You got so much size in the paint. So I credit that Norcross defense for holding them to just 40, but really it was more impressive than that. They matched them with the size, and then they really dominated them on the glass with their athleticism. They crashed the boards throughout the time, and then Janiyah Akins, Mercer signee, and as Najee and Matt Stewart pointed out, Mercer is getting a heck of a playmaker. She's so tough. She has ice in her veins at the foul line, and she has probably the best range I've seen. Maybe statistically there's a three-point shooter with a better percentage, but I don't see anyone else that's able to knock it down from 5 points beyond the arc like that with the ability to drive and dish out passes. She is such a tremendous player, and I think all the great girls that have gone through the Norcross program, she definitely is going to be up there by the time this season's over. So she finished with 32 points in the 51-40 victory. If we had an all Corky MVP, it would be her, 100%. She was outstanding. And then, I mean, this is against a really good Baldwin team too. So Baldwin led 10-8 after the first quarter. Norcross battled back, secured the 24-21 lead at the half. They extended their lead with a 12-7 run in the third. That's when they started to pull away, making it 36-28. Senior guard Kate Sidley had 8 points. She knocked down some big shots from outside. Junior forward Justice Fitzgerald scored 6 points for Norcross. As for Baldwin, Cassie Neal and Janae Walker each finished with 11 points, and Madison Ruff was held to just 9. So once again, it was all about that defense and then just the incredible play of Janiyah Atkins. And she certainly deserves a lot of attention this season, and she's going to be very motivated after falling last year to Brookwood in the finals. All right, the final game was probably the most wild one of the entire tournament or classic. Douglas won 58-56. They led by as many as 23 points in that game. Norcross did not really cut into that until the third quarter, and they barely did. But then Norcross went on a 17-0 run in the fourth and brought it within a point. It was crazy. And then they ended up passing up because once Douglas went back up by 2, 58-56, Norcross passed up on a wide open 3 to, I guess, try to tie up the game. And then it left them, after it went out of bounds off a Douglas defender, it left them with just 0.3 seconds left. And then they tried a desperation tip in at the end, but it didn't go. So it's a big win for Douglas. They're highly ranked in Class 3A. Probably playing in the toughest region with defending state champs Sandy Creek and Cedar Grove. But it's a big win for them over, obviously, a 7A opponent. If you want to watch the end of that one, you can fast forward to it. We got the full replay up. But Douglas came out so strong, for so many turnovers, led 26-11 in the first, led by as many as 23, as I said. And they were all going off in the first half. All their scores, whether it was R.J. Weingarner getting buckets, Josh McKell, Noah Treadwell had some spectacular plays. But really, I think probably the toughest player on the court in that game was Toby Ajokwu. That's Norcross's point guard. Norcross is going to be okay when everyone else is providing points, but it was only him early. He was having to do way too much, and then he basically willed them back into the game. But I think if his guys, I mean, there were some players on that team, I'm not going to lie, where they're basically turnover machines. Like, they didn't want the ball in their hand. They've got to get some support around him. He is their returning starter, but he really impressed me. But I think Norcross still has some work to do. They came back nonetheless, and it was a great game. But definitely the highlights in that game were tremendous. There were some alley-oops, some huge blocks, and I really liked that matchup. It was a lot of fun, and once again, we have it up there at the Score YouTube page. But all the recaps are up there. We're going to have the updated basketball rankings coming out on Wednesday, and we'll have much more content at scoreatl.com. But that's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Underrated and Overlooked.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.